I found the letter while cleaning out my father's study a few days after the funeral. An old envelope, no stamp, no date, only a line written in fading ink, to Lila, New York. I'd never heard my father mention anyone named Lila. He was a disciplined man, quiet, devoted to my mother in that calm, undemonstrative way. So when I opened the letter, I could hardly believe the tone inside. I still remember that summer. The air was warm. The world seemed endless. Sometimes I wonder if life would have been different had we chosen another road. But I never regretted the path I took. What we were and what I kept have stayed with me, quietly, all these years. The words were too soft, too sorrowful, written to someone he never said goodbye to. I read them again and again, and one question kept echoing in my mind. Who was Lila? When my father was young, there had been an accident. Someone died, and he was the one behind the wheel. People said the victim was his girlfriend's brother, and that she left town right after it happened. I grew up with that story, with the pitying looks that followed us everywhere. Your father's a good man. It was just that one mistake. No one ever spoke more about it, but I knew. That was the shadow he carried all his life. Every time he passed the riverside where it happened, he would stop and stare at the water, saying nothing. When I was little, I thought he just liked the view. Later, I realized that was how he punished himself. He never talked about the past. He just worked, stayed in town, never complained. But sometimes at night, I'd hear the faint crackle of his old radio, and the sound of him sighing, as if there was someone he still couldn't forgive. My mother once said, "Your father's a good man, just burdened by a sadness no one can reach." I believed her. I believed he'd done something terrible, and spent the rest of his life atoning for it. Until I found that letter. A man like my father wouldn't keep an unsent letter for 40 years, unless it carried something heavier than regret. I wanted to find the woman he wrote to, if only to tell her the man who loved her was gone. The address was still there, a small apartment in New York. I went one late afternoon. The woman who opened the door was thin, silver-haired, eyes tired but kind. When I said my father's name, she froze, then whispered. I thought I'd never hear that name again. We sat in a dim room, surrounded by old photographs and warm yellow light. I showed her the envelope, told her I'd found it after his death, and thought she should have it. Her hands trembled as she read. Tears fell quietly onto the paper. I've waited for these words all my life, she said, but he never sent them. I asked softly, my father and you were close? She nodded. Then after a long silence began to speak. We were in love, but my family never accepted him. My father was running for mayor, and David was just a mechanic kind, stubborn, honest. My brother hated him. He said David would ruin us. Her voice trembled. That night, I was falling apart. The argument with my father and brother about David had pushed me to the edge. I grabbed a bottle of whiskey, something I almost never touched, and started drinking. The burn made my head spin, and all I could feel was anger and shame. My brother came in, saw me, and we started fighting again. I just wanted to get out of that house, away from their voices, from everything. I snatched the car keys and ran outside. He followed me, shouting my name. I started the engine, desperate to leave, and then he tried to stop me. I hit the gas. He stepped in front of the car. I didn't have time to brake. He died right there by the gate. I felt my chest tighten. She went on, I panicked. My father broke down. My brother and I, we loved each other deeply. Even if we fought about David, he only wanted to protect me, and I killed him. To my father, he was everything, his pride, his legacy. When my brother died, something inside him died too. David came over what he heard. He didn't ask anything, just looked at me for a long time, then said, "If you confess, you'll lose everything. Your father's already broken. He can't survive another scandal. I can't let the woman I love bury herself for one mistake. I'll take it. They'll go easier on me. I wasn't drinking. You, just live. Don't look back." I tried to stop him, but David only shook his head. The next morning he went to the police. She paused, voice quivering. I left town soon after. My father lost the election, then fell ill and died. And David, he kept his word. He never said a thing, and he lived in silence for the rest of his life. Then she smiled faintly, eyes glistening. You know, in 40 years, I've never driven a car again. I left her apartment as the sun went down. In my hand was my father's letter, the one he never sent, but which somehow contained 2 entire lives. When I came home, I placed the letter back in his drawer. The evening light fell through the window, soft and sad, like the words he never said.